Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk, and welcome to my 2023 College Football Week 1 recap video. That's where I go recap over the games I picked over my previous video, kind of see how I did, how well I didn't do, depends on how you kind of look at the scenarios. And kind of highlight a couple other interesting games I floated out there that kind of raised some eyebrows. Now, I know I didn't cover any week 0 matchups, and there wasn't really many to kind of pick through, to be honest. I mean, you have the Notre Dame Navy game kicking off in Ireland, USC also closing out the scenario for week 0 against San Jose State. So I didn't really, cover all that. So we're just going to go dive right into week 1, right into Thursday, right into a key matchup between Florida and Utah. These two battle back and forth. This is the rematch what happened in the swamp where Florida's defense came alive, shocked Utah, and, surprised the Utes, basically. Utes thought they'd go in there, come out there with some, new shoes, and they got eaten. They got eaten by a gator. This time around, the gator had to go up to the mountains. And didn't fare too well. They struggled mightily throughout this game. They're only able to muster 3 points in the first 3 quarters. Utah was able to sustain themselves. I mean, they were struggling quite a bit as well. So Florida's defense still were trying to do their things. Just new quarterbacks on both teams, both trying to get their sure footing. So they kind of struggled a bit, but Utah was in control for 3 quarters. Fourth quarter was more Florida in control of the game, but they came a little bit too late. Utah hanged on the win, 24-11. Give me my first win of week number 1. Then we head over to Minnesota. Don't you know? As Rule's making his coaching debut for the Cornhuskers as Nebraska came to town. And I was looking at this going, okay, brand new coach. Maybe things start turning around. He's going back to his roots because he couldn't make it in the NFL. Where style of coaching didn't really fit the NFL. And that happens with a lot of college football coaches, by the way. Holtz, Spurrier, or Saban, all of them have had short stints in the NFL. But great college football coaches. But Rule just couldn't, Nebraska just couldn't get out of their own way, basically. It was a slow affair, and Nebraska couldn't close it out. Minnesota came back at the end, ended up winning 13-10 in the final seconds to burst the debut. Excuse me. But I think Nebraska has some things to look up towards. There wasn't a blowout. Definitely has a lot of mistakes to take care of. But they show tenacity. You just got to be able to close out games. But it's going to be a long road for Nebraska fans. Then just go ahead and skip on to Saturday. I was kind of excited to watch because I figured it'd be a little bit closer than when it finally was West Virginia traveling to Happy Valley to take on Penn State. Now, I said West Virginia will make it interesting early and be competitive, and at halftime, it's only 14-7 Nittany Lions. But Allar for Penn State definitely has a makings of a very good quarterback for him. Part of what they were kind of missing for that offense, because he led up West Virginia for 325 yards and 3 touchdowns. In the fourth quarter, they just opened up, the offense, and they just spewed ahead against West Virginia, 38-15, giving you my second win of the season. Then we head over to Seattle, where Boise State came to town, take on Washington. Now, I was trying to give a lot more respect to Boise State. figured they kind of, trying to repeat the thing. But Penix Jr. and this Washington offense is going to be one of the issues in the pack right now. So if you look at them and USC, both of them have very potent offenses right now. We can't overlook Utah. We can't overlook Oregon. So the Pack's going to have a fantastic closing year for their season. They could have 4 teams sniffing in a playoff position. But Penix Jr., 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. It was just no match for Boise State. Boise State could not even sniff anything. 28-12 at the half, and that was it. 56-19 was the final. I was kind of going for an upset here. I was denied. Yeah, it wouldn't be my first mistake either. Mayo to Rocket Top there in Knoxville, Tennessee, as Virginia Cavaliers came to town. I remember Virginia had a horrific ending of their football season last year due to the gun violence on campus that took the lives of students and student athletes, and it caused them to really cancel the last 2 games of the season. So them coming back is a path of healing to try to brush themselves off in just a matter of months to get back out there on the field and to play. Unfortunately, they were visiting Tennessee. Milton was not very kind to them in terms of that. And so you had over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, as the Volunteers were just too much for the Cavs, beating them 49-13. And giving me another victory so far this week. Then a surprising game out there in Fort Worth, Texas, as TCU was playing host to Colorado. This is Coach Sanders' prime time himself, making his FBS coaching debut. His son was also the starting quarterback for Golden Buffaloes. He was taking his potent offense and his recruitment prowess from Jackson State to Boulder. And he can recruit. He can coach regular season games. I just didn't think he had the talent in place at that particular point in time, at least for this game against TCU. TCU is no easy pushover. But for some reason, TCU forgot to play defense. Colorado was able to score often. Both teams are actually able to score often. It was that first quarter where, the first game jitters were in play there. But after that, it was pretty much Colorado, just, tit for tat. Sanders had over 500 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. I mean, he wasn't mentioned a lot by a lot of the progenitor of the sporting world, on Monday morning. But something you have to take a look at. 4 Colorado receivers had over 100 yards. That's unprecedented. We have 4 receivers doing that, which means TCU's secondary is non-existent. Colorado has completely obliterated any hot shot of TCU returning to the playoff, let alone a national championship game that they were able to get to last year. That is gone. But Shedeur Sanders definitely had one hell of a game, one hell of a debut for FBS. They could make some noise in the pack as well, and their final season there. We'll kind of see how things kind of play out when they take on a little bit better defenses than TCU's. They had the showdown in Charlotte between the Carolinas, former conference rivals. Now we're in 2 separate conferences. Squaring off to see who is the king of the Carolinas between the Tar Heels and the Gamecocks. And Rattler, I know, had a strong end of the season last year. Getting South Carolina to the bowl game. May is returning. being prime. I think he's going to be a top tier quarterback to be drafted next year. He had a couple of mistakes, but North Carolina was just it's the defenses that are really standpoint right now for North Carolina. And Mac Brown has a good team going in place, and they probably could shock some teams in the ACC because ACC doesn't look as dominant by one team as many might thought. But North Carolina was just too much for South Carolina. That second half, it was all Tar Heels. They just shut the door on South Carolina. They couldn't do anything. 31-17, continuing my winning ways. And then an upset I did predict. Fresno State went into Indiana to take on Purdue. And I said Fresno State was going in there and surprise the Boilermakers. Fresno State is just one of these quality teams right there in the Mountain West that you cannot overlook. Purdue was kind of they were shaky in the beginning of the season last year, and they kind of, once they had conference play, they hit their stride. A little bit of deja vu, a little bit. But King was king. He'd had over 360 yards passing with 4 touchdowns. Now, so he was just disseminating the rock, shredding Purdue secondary. Fresno State's defense was also annihilated. It wasn't much in terms of defense. It's pretty much a go, go, go. Pretty much cover out TCU. This was Fresno State, Purdue. A little bit less scoring, and Fresno State came out on top 39-35, upsetting the Boilermakers at home. Now we head back over to Fort Collins, Colorado, as the Rams are playing host to Washington State. And this is one I was kind of saying that, Washington State was going to get the win to kind of help balance the equation against the Mountain West in week 1. Washington already blew that out of the water for me. But Wazoo was just way too much to handle for Colorado State. Ward, over 450 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. I think Wazoo's going to make some noise as well. Put themselves in the top end of the conference. But they just shredded Colorado State. That fourth quarter, I think, is a complete anomaly. This is where I think like the second stringers were all in. So defenses were just whatever. As each team scored 21 points each. But Washington State beat Colorado State 50-24. And then we head down to H-Town, where the University of Houston was playing host to UTSA. Houston was making their Big 12 debut. UTSA is making the American debut. Now, some people had UTSA as a favorite, and I don't think they have a very good team. Don't get me wrong. They always seem to find the talent and retool themselves every year. But Houston's a different animal to kind of start up against. Now, this wasn't a offensive showcase by any means whatsoever. I mean, it was only 10-7.5 in favor of UH. And Houston was able to just hold off and beat UTSA 17-14. Start the season off 1-0. Then we're headed to Laramie, Wyoming, as the Cowboys are playing host to the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Now, I thought this would be a shootout between the two. And I thought Texas Tech would be a little bit too much and just edge out Wyoming. Texas Tech jumped out early and then struggled the rest of the game. They were up 17-0 in the first quarter, 17-10 at half. Wyoming just kept chipping away. I told you, Wyoming had a run-stop defense last year. It was just obliterating top rushing schools. I mean, they had Air Force and just completely grounded them. You think Air Force have a ground attack, but there's another point. But Wyoming was just going and just nipping away. It's just Texas Tech just could not get anything going. Ended up going into overtime, tied at 20 apiece, and this is where the fun began as they went back and forth and went double overtime. And Wyoming knocked off Texas Tech, proving that Cowboy is greater than a Raider. As the fans stormed the field, Wyoming winning 35-33, giving me my fourth loss of this week. And then Sunday, down there in Orlando, LSU and Florida State, round 2. Now, Florida State shocked LSU last year in the Superdome. So the rematch, I think people kind of thought LSU could do better because of how they finished the season. Remember who's coaching LSU. Now I'm just going to leave it at that. I think I mentioned it quite a few times. I took Florida State in this one. Florida State did not disappoint. I mean, it was LSU had the early lead. So LSU, the first half, was doing everything they should be doing. However, that did not translate well in the second half. LSU just disappeared. Nickelodeon Munster 7. They were outscored that second half 31-7. Florida State opened the floodgates in that fourth quarter, dominated LSU 45-24. Now making Florida State probably the team to really watch out for in the ACC this year. Again, returning them back to the mountaintop. And leaving me 8-4 for opening week. Gets me a decent bowl. So definitely some interesting games to go over. And there's a few upsets that really got people kind of talking. And one of the other upsets that kind of shocked everyone happened in Waco. The Baylor Bears playing host to Texas State Bobcats. Everyone thought Baylor was going to win this one hands down. So did I. And that's why they didn't really bother with it. Just kind of overlooked it. Texas Tech is like, no, we're not going to overlook us. And there was some highlights in this one. Joey Hobart had this one-handed catch that was just incredible. Be able to make sure he had 1 foot inside as he caught that ball one-handed as he went out. As Texas Tech was just making play after play after play. Champlin he did have 2 touchdowns overall, 300 yards passing, but they couldn't do much of anything else. The Baylor's defense was pretty much inept. A weird thing to see that Texas State was up 28-13 at the half. Now, looking at that while you're cutting, okay, if you're a Baylor fan, you're not like, all right, fine, we gave them some points here. We're going to come back. They just couldn't really get over that hump. They just couldn't find ways to kind of go, okay, here we go. As Texas State just kept scoring every time Baylor scored, it kind of put things out of perspective. And Texas State upset Baylor 42-31, sending shockwaves in Texas and the Big 12 country. And then Monday Night Football, ACC style. The Duke Blue Devils are playing host to the Clemson Tigers. Everyone thinks that Clemson, Florida State, pretty much the 1-2 for the ACC. Duke's defense was very opportunistic. Clemson had a lot of miscues and mishandled. If a muff punt wasn't done by Duke, that gave Clemson a short field that pretty much gave them a touchdown. This could have been a shutout. They've had 2 blocked punts, 2 fumbles in the red zone. I mean, you cannot do self-inflicted wounds like that in the very opportunistic team Duke has established in year 2. I mean, this is first win against a ranked team since, 1989, when Steve Spurrier was the head coach of Duke. and they beat Clemson. This is the first time in school history that Duke has beaten a top 10 opponent in the season opener. This sent shockwaves through the college football world. Duke was defense was just all over, intercepting, picking up the loose balls. Just could not allow Clemson to do much anything. Clemson's self-inflicted wounds didn't help them much. A couple scores in the fourth really sealed the deal as Duke upset Clemson 28-7. As the Cameron Crazies stormed the field. Yeah, I know it's not the Cameron Indoor Arena, but that's what Duke is known for. And it looks like Duke and North Carolina could be the top two teams. We could throw in Florida State in there as well. So you got at least a 3-team race. I think you can look possibly ACC, but still too early. But those were just some wild, crazy games. Definitely some wild, crazy games coming up next week, especially the big one between Texas and Alabama. That should be a fun matchup. Rematch from last year. Let's see how this one kind of plays out. But yeah, I went 8-4. Not bad. I mean, kind of thought that's, the first week. Trying to, play some things out, kind of see how things kind of go, and kind of happy with that aspect. Happy that, most of my teams all in winning their week 1. And for Notre Dame, week 0 and week 1. But Notre Dame's going to have a test next week, so it won't be as easy of a win. Illinois, of course, struggle against Toledo, so they have a lot of things to work out. But we'll see how things kind of go over the season, and this is a great start of the season. Which games surprised you the most? Which upset really shocked you? Was it the Colorado's upset, Duke's, Texas State, maybe Fresno State? I mean, it's way too early to kind of foretell, but who do you think could be the possible frontrunners right now for the playoffs? I think it's too early to really kind of tell, but definitely kind of look at Florida State as 1, USC is 2, no particular order, by the way. SEC, I am up in the air, as well as the Big Ten. I mean, that's just, hard to kind of pinpoint who you could really go with. I mean, the Big Ten, maybe Michigan or Penn State. And I think the SEC, I'd probably go with Alabama right now. But like I said, this is way too early to kind of tell. A lot of football still to go. So only time will tell. But hey, hit me down in the comments below. Tell me what you think of this first week. What you're looking for this upcoming season. Once you're down there, make sure you hit that thumbs up, especially like the content provider. Really pleases you two guys. Really help promote this channel out. You can also subscribe once you click that bell icon. Make sure you turn on notifications so the next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.